South Africa has to celebrate this day fully. We need to go back to our Africanism, gather all our fathers and mothers and start building families and homes again. Imbizos have to be organized for everybody to engage and find the reasons why we're killing one another. Politicians don't carry solutions for this problem, but ordinary human beings in communities. Let home building be prioritized and encouraged in all our societies. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Gugumari. I'm calling from White River. I think in cases like that of Kensani, I think the victim, the immediate action should be to support the victim and to round up friends and family to teach them how to support her, because sometimes problems like that of Kensani is exacerbated by the way people around her are going to remark or what they're going to say to her that will make her to take a decision that she did. That she's a victim, yes, but then we should not add to what she's already suffering. Thank you.
Right, we've been taking your voice notes, 2 of them there. This is, of course, On the Record, our segment here on The Full View, and it's a weekly one. Every Thursday we discuss and sometimes we'll debate the pertinent issues of the day. It is National Women's Day today, and we've got an esteemed panel in the studio and a guest in Cape Town. Ladies, perhaps let's reflect on that, on those 2 voice notes, calling for imbizos, calling for extensive support for people who are obviously affected by this issue. And also the language, I think, is also an issue that we need to discuss. The word victim, is it something that sits well with you, Fatima?
Well, it's the reality that women are victims of men, and then again of a system that just doesn't care about our lives. And so on the question of imbizos, I want to ask the president of our country, what do you need to hear from us that you do not know already? We're tired of imbizos. We've been saying the same thing for 25 years. No one seems to listen or be politically willed enough to act on it. We get Batabili Dlamini as a minister for us. If there's ever a sign that no one is taking us seriously, it's that. You know, this is not someone who's going to take seriously our lives. Look at what she's done in the previous portfolios. So we're asking the president, the first 100 days in office, we did not hear our president once acknowledge that there's a crisis in this country. On the eve of total shutdown, the NSC had a meeting, not one word about women. So show us a sign that you understand that there's a crisis. We are happy about the numbers of women in parliament, but those women are not accountable to us. They are accountable to the political party machinery that put them there.
Lulama, the president, though, did acknowledge that, after receiving that memorandum from the organizers of Total Shutdown, for example, that there would be this gender summit, and he placed the direction for that squarely with the women. He said that the women would lead it as they were requesting from Total Shutdown. Are you at least encouraged by that, or is it not enough?
I think for the Gender Commission, there are 2 encouraging aspects about the president. Even before the shutdown, the president committed to a gender-based violence council, a discussion on it. And I think for me, it's a build-up with the gender summit. But I know that our young people are saying to us, they are tired of the talking. They want action. And I think for me, even as a Gender Commission, we want action. So if anyone has to sit around the table, it has to be the police, it has to be the justice system, it has to be the security cluster, and address the issues that are put across: the protection of women, access to justice, and for government, the head of state, to respond.
Lisa, in a sense, you might say we want to redesign the entire system. I spoke a little earlier before the break around our legal system. It's very adversarial. The burden of proof is placed on the accuser, and quite often, women are victimized again and again as they're taken through details. There's things like slut shaming. That happens in our courts of law, which obviously means in many instances they're not going to be places where women can find that their voices will be heard.
You know, I think trying to alter the legal system is a very complex endeavor. And I think that was why there was a party that was very happy with total shutdown, but also felt quite depressed by the fact that the demands there are not new. These are, in many instances, 25 years old, and in some instances, They are about things
Why
that
have
are...
they not been heard?
You see, this is exactly the point. I do not want to go to another Imbizo ever again. I don't want to talk. I want to see a politician come and explain, and I would like to see Parliament hold them to account when they do not make a budget available in order to set up and establish sufficient shelters. I would like to see people fired. I would like to see politicians actually put policies in place in their own parties in order to deal with sexual harassment. That doesn't exist. So I do not want to hear platitudes any longer. I would like them at the summit to come and tell us how much they've spent to the cent in order to implement particular laws. I want to know how many people have been dismissed and disciplined for not doing their jobs properly. I would like to know how much training they've actually done. Because in some ways it's quite hard to say whether or not our policies have succeeded because they've never been implemented properly. It may be that we do need to have some new ideas. Because in 2007, the new Sexual Offences Act was put in place. That was the opportunity. So there were things on the table at that point in time to talk about the creation of a more inquisitorial system, which gets away from an adversarial system. That was not a step that government was prepared to take. There was also conversations about possibly in rape trials you should have a second prosecutor, an ancillary prosecutor, who's there just for the complainant to protect her interests, so she has her own equivalent of a legal representative. That also got dropped. There was also a whole set of suggestions around the state having to pay for comprehensive psychosocial support. That got dropped on the basis of expense. Now, quite frankly, if you don't think women, the women who provide that psychosocial support work is not worth paying for, and if you don't think victims are worth expending some money on helping them to get over their difficulties, that speaks volumes to me. So we've been down the road in trying to reform the criminal justice system.
Seeham, let me bring you back into the conversation. I mean, as the director for the Legal Centre, a lot of the conversation is centering around how the legal system needs to be more responsive to how women experience the whole process, the whole judicial process. What are some of the thoughts that you want to put forward in terms of how the system could make it easier for victims to come forward and have their voices heard?
I said it earlier that, and Lisa has also touched on this, we need more psychosocial support for victims of violence because the challenges, because of the adversarial nature of our criminal justice system, women are secondary victimized because of the system itself. And what happens is that if they can't go through the system, these matters are withdrawn, or these women cannot go through the particular system. And we need to be able to address this. And how do we do that? Is to be able to give that psychosocial support. But also broadly, if we speak about substantive equality, it means that we need to do more for women within the system. We need to do more for victims of violence, which means that we need to be able to ensure that there is an entire system, including shelters. If a woman is abused on the most simplest level, where does she go? How does she get support in terms of maintenance for children? Because these are all the identities and the challenges that women have to go through by just laying a charge and also bringing an interdict, for example, against her partner. What happens in relation to that particular woman? She cannot stay in that particular house if the person is still there. And how does the system assist her to be able to either ensure to stay in that house or to be able to find some form of alternative accommodation up until she will be able to put herself through the system again. And these are all things that women need support. So I think priority is psychosocial support. We need more shelters. We need assistance for women in relation to housing. We need assistance for women to be able to ensure that they have some form of support for their children, because more times than not, their children will have to go with them. And how do women go through a system when they know that they can't support their children? What happens is that they go back to that abusive relationship. And these are some of the practicalities that we need to deal with on a daily basis. That women go and get domestic violence interdicts, but it's those broader challenges that are ensure or causes that they go back to that particular relationships. And I think that the system don't center them within the criminal justice system. We need to be able to ensure that they get support before and within and even after, because the traumas are real for those women, including the children. So I would prioritize psychosocial support as well as funding into shelters. And we have seen over the past 10 years that there has been a reduction of funding to shelters. And most of those shelters are managed by non-governmental organizations. And we haven't seen any prioritization from government in relation to these organizations. We have seen funding being divested from these organizations into different forms of programs and different focuses. But the focus should be on institutions that support women through the particular criminal justice system.
All right, so Seeham, you're talking about psychosocial support. We've heard you, Lisa, talking about holding politicians in particular to account. But if we look at the broader picture, the other conversation that we need to have is around even the very definitions of where the problems might lie. And I've said it before, that there are so many men who may consider themselves allies of the fight against gender-based violence, but don't see themselves necessarily as perpetrators. We also need clear definitions of what it is and who is involved, who are the wrongdoers, do we not? Fatima.
Well, in our conversation to date, we've focused a lot of our energies on government, and of course we're talking about civil society because that's the role we play as women's rights organizations. But we've got to have a conversation about corporate South Africa and its role in keeping women locked into a system where they cannot make a move. And so part of the conversation is how business in our country treat the women workers. The wages women get paid, their rights as workers, these are not separate conversations, because that economic marginalization is what feeds into women's marginalization and the inability to make decisions about their lives and those of their children.
Lulam, I mean, from the Gender Commission's point of view, you often deal with corporates, and one of the questions I have is, why do companies see complaints, for example, as a threat to the business? Why is the instinctive reaction seemingly to protect the person who is accused rather than the accuser?
They throw the kitchen sink against a woman who is saying, I'm sexually harassed at work. What the corporate chooses to do, even government's departments that we have noticed coming to the Gender Commission, they bring in that woman who is complaining, is sitting there alone because of the prohibitive costs and the access to justice. Sitting there alone, and comes the boss, the HR, and the alleged perpetrator with a senior counsel and a junior counsel. And they are sitting there trying to protect the alleged perpetrator.
Or even
and
the
I think
business.
it's something that they should stop. Even the business, it is collusion with patriarchy. You are saying, as a corporate, even as a department, as an HOD who does this, you are saying, you don't believe her, you believe the man, that the man has not done it. And therefore you are here, you are putting all your bets that this is a frivolous act. And I think that it's high time. The companies must allow the perpetrator to look for her own lawyer at her own cost out of the company and deal with the allegations. The second part about justice, I think one of the things that we've seen as a Gender Commission, women sit there, the cases get delayed and delayed. We had a case in Hammanskraal, 7 years, and the woman has a bullet lodged here. The person who has done this is walking free, getting all the time bail. And what do the magistrates say? Oh, we have changed. I am the new magistrate. I am sure that I'm going to do this. And we're saying to the Magistrates Commission, do what needs to be done to deal with the justice system, to deal with the backlogs. We need specialized crimes unit, especially for sexual offenses. We can't wait any longer in these long queues under piles and piles and files. We must act.
So little time to get into all of these issues. It's an ongoing conversation, and I thank you very much to all three of you in the studio and, of course, in Cape Town. And thank you for watching us on The Record. This is, as I say, our weekly debate here on The Full View every Thursday. If you want to catch this interview and all our other features, you can go to SABC News Online on Facebook and Twitter, and we will leave you with this campaign. Shout. Until the next time, ubusuku benzo. Good night.
Shout, let it out loud. These are the things I can do without. You should have loved us so. In black and white. They really, really ought to know. Those one-track minds. Kiss them goodbye. Just shouldn't have to jump for joy. You shouldn't have to shout. Shout. Let it all out. Let it all out. These are the things I can do. Come on. I'm talking to you. Come on. Yeah. Shout. Let it all out. These are the things I can do without. Come on. I'm talking to you. Come on. Come on. They gave you life, and in return you gave them hell. Hell's cold as ice. I hope we live to tell the tale. I hope we live to tell the tale. Let it all out. Let it all out. These are the things I can do without. Come on. I'm talking to you. Come on. I wanna shout, wanna scream, let it out. These are the things I can do. I can do without. That came with me. I'm talking to you. Come on. I'm talking to those who really wanna listen. I'm talking to those who wanna learn something. I'm talking to those who wanna make a difference. I'm talking to those who sick and tired of being sick and tired. Stop play la play me at a feta. Had to get a child in time with the meter. Call it a play la bana liberator. All in the name of making a die, make a debate. I started counting the amount of violent lives we lost over violent crimes, and I was astounded. No mom's